My name is Candace. I guess I should change that. I work at the Iowa City Public Library. And here comes my cat Dickens. He's about to show himself. Oh, just his tail. Okay, good. Here, let me put my name up here. There we go. I work on the information desk on the second floor, and I select half of the nonfiction collection, the adult nonfiction collection, and I do the Art to Go program. So it's been a pretty weird year, so we've been doing a lot of things via Zoom, but our collections are still there, and we've been, now that we're open for express browsing, ordering more books, getting more things, you know, to look more like normal. So my job is a little bit like it used to be, although not quite all the way there. I'm going to go ahead and out Stacy. She is also an Iowa City Public Library employee. So
I probably know everybody else from coming to my classes. So it's nice to see familiar faces.
She gives some great classes.
Stacy does an amazing job with the classes. You know, we kind of struggled with that for years. And before her, we had a librarian working the position who kind of turned it around, and then Stacy sort of just picked up and carried on with all the great things that have been started, and just is very inventive and imaginative with what a class a library has can be. Really breaks out of that box of, you know, when I was kind of up and coming as a librarian, it was like computer classes and, you know, how to use the library catalog and, you know, really things related to the library. And it's just, it's so much more than that. It just takes some young whippersnapper like Stacy to to show us how to do it.
Well, A, I'm not that young, and B, I kind of convinced Candace that I was hoping she would do something on newspapers, because when I scroll through that page, my eyes just glaze over. And so I'm so excited to be here as a student so that I can get it better.
Well, good. Yeah.
I'm hoping all the things I try to get to, like the New York Times and all that stuff, will not be blocked so much. You're over your limit. It's the kind of stuff we're going to learn to have access to.
Yes, we will. In fact, so when you use the library's access to the New York Times, you shouldn't have a limit. So it's possible that you just need to go and reestablish the access code, and that you're not. So yeah, we'll get to that, because you should not have a 10 article limit if you're using our access to the New York Times. If you've just created your own free account with the New York Times, the free one that, you know, you put in your email and you create a password and it gives you the 10 articles, you can add our access, and that gets rid of the 10 article limit. It only
this is all just links I get from my Apple News thing and my oh, what's her name? I get a couple other ones and they link you. So when I try to go on the link.
Yep. So
hopefully there's a way to.
Yes. Yeah. And it's very easy. Yep. That's definitely included in here. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and get started. If I see people in the waiting room, I'll go ahead and add them. But we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about the various news resources that we offer at ICPL. And it's Stacy mentioned that she's the one who asked me to do this. I was going to say conned me, but no, that's not fair. And we had this really interesting conversation about how to present it, because we offer access to news in various ways. So we have some databases that are full of, I would easily hundreds of newspapers, possibly thousands, from all over the world. And they could have anything from archival material to more recent runs of the newspaper up to the current news. But they might only be full text with no pictures. And then we have access to the newspaper's own website version of the New York Times and the Washington Post. So there's that access we provide. And then we have some other databases that have maybe just one newspaper or newspapers from one specific area that may be current news or maybe historical news. So it's kind of like some of these databases you would absolutely use to read the news, like you would read a newspaper. Others of them, while they may have the absolute up-to-date news, you wouldn't go to them to read the newspaper. It just wouldn't be very user-friendly that way. So we've kind of decided to, or I guess I have, but we talked about how to present it. And I kind of decided to first just make a brief explanation of the kinds of things we have. So I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to start the PowerPoint and you'll get an idea of what it is I'm talking about. And please feel free to, part of the time I'll be sharing my screen. You can use the chat function to ask questions. You can wait until the end and ask questions. You can always email me afterwards. I'll give my email. If you end up wanting the PowerPoint that I created, I can send that along to you. It's just got brief notes there. And this is also being recorded. But I'm absolutely open to taking questions and being interrupted or whatever you're comfortable with. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and we'll start with the PowerPoint from here. All right. Okay. There we go. So all the news is fit to read. That was like the cleverest title I could think of. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yes. Great. Okay. I think Stacy had some other titles, but we went with this one. So as I was saying, we have all of these things are in one place. When you go to our website, and I'll show you how to get to this list of resources, we have all of our online resources listed on one long page. And I think the page, when you first go to it, is in an alphabetical list. But I mean, we've got 20 or 30 things listed there. So we've also broken them up into subjects. And all of these would fall under, we actually have a subject heading of just newspapers. So all of these would fall under there. And so these are the 8 databases, I'm going to call them databases, that I'm going to talk about during this class. And some of them are probably familiar to you. Maybe you've used Newsbank or ProQuest before. Maybe you've used Newspaper Archive if you do any genealogy or historical research. New York Times, Washington Post, those are their websites that we provide access to. And then historical Iowa City newspapers and the Gazette Digital Archives are 2 databases that each of the libraries acquired and had done on their own. And then the New York Times Historical is another database that's provided by ProQuest, but it's a little bit different. And as I was saying, they kind of provide or are arranged in different ways. Newsbank, ProQuest, and Newspaper Archive are the ones I was talking about that are full of hundreds and hundreds of newspapers from around the world. New York Times and Washington Post are the 2 websites. And then the last 3 are the ones that are limited to a single paper or a single location. So that's one way to think of them, is how, you know, what do they have? How do they present themselves? But also the 4 on top are more what I would consider current news databases, whereas the ones on the bottom, starting with Newspaper Archive, I would use for historical news. And so that was just kind of the conundrum of how to present them. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the multiple newspaper databases. The first one I'm going to start with is one called America's News. These are just a few notes here. It's part of Newsbank, which is a bigger database. And that also has a section called America's Obituaries and Death Notices. So if you do any historical research, that is a thing you may have used before. It's not super historical, but it would have obituaries and death notices from across the United States, probably for the last, I would guess, going back 30 years, from all like little newspapers and things like that. This database does require you to log in with your library card and password, and it is limited to what we call our library service area, which is patrons who live in Iowa City, University Heights, and then areas we contract with, Hills. Oh, I'm going to forget the other one. Stacy can pipe in. Oh, rural Johnson County is also included in this. And
Lone Tree.
Thank you very much. I knew it was 2 words. Thank you. This is a database that has over 50 Iowa papers, including those that you see listed there. This is a full text database, meaning they've just taken the content of the articles and they've put it in a full text document. There are no pictures here. And it's also possible that some content is not included. It could be things like, you know, how we have the daily log of police activity, or even in some cases obituaries, are things that they don't add to their database. So while you could go and read the up-to-date news with this database, I don't think it's the way anybody would want to, because you'd literally be paging article through article, no pictures, might be missing content. So that's America's News. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to a browser, and I'm going to show you how to log into that and how to get to these databases. So here's our website. Everyone can see that? You go up here to Books and More, and over here on the right is Resources, and the first one there is Online Resources. And you go ahead and choose that. And here's this long list of all the different online resources we provide access to. If it has the little yellow card there, it means you have to be able to sign in with your Iowa City library card and password. If you don't have a password, we can help you get set up with one of those. Over here are the categories you can pick, and so I'm just going to hit newspapers. And that gives me a better, smaller grouping of newspaper resources. Here's America's News, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And since I'm at home right now, I have to log in as well. That's not, sorry. Okay, so when you first land on their main page, up here it says News Bank. Here's that obituaries and death notices. So you could go right to that if that's what you were looking for. But this is America's News here. And they've pulled out some nice categories. You could go to their list of Iowa newspapers, and they've pulled out the Gazette. So you could go straight to that and just look through Gazette articles or search through Gazette articles. I'm going to go ahead and just go into that, because any search screen on here is going to look the same pretty much. So I'm just going to choose the Gazette one, which means all of my searching would be limited to articles from the Gazette. And this is what their search screen looks like. It's just a basic search bar here. You can use the advanced search. I'll show you that in a second. You can, when you go into an individual paper, they give you all the issues by date that you could go through. And so that's what they've got from the Gazette, going back to 92, so that's great. And if you say you did want to just look at the paper for today, I'm gonna go to April 29th. Here's, so they do have obituaries for April 28th. Oh, and that's all they have right now is the obituaries. That's a bad example. There we go. So that's what it would look like. It literally just gives you the headlines of the articles that they have, and you would click on them and read them. So really not a very pleasant way to read the newspaper. I'm gonna go back here. One more. My internet seems to be really slow. I'm really glad my husband isn't playing Fortnite, which I asked him not to do because I knew it would create a problem. One more. Okay, there we go. The other thing that they have here is this. Oh. Sorry, just a moment. Okay, here. I'm going to go back into the main America's News. Oh, that is what it looks like. So they have, this is again, the basic search bar. They have down here these suggested topics. So if you're ever doing, you know, like a research report or something, or if you know kids who are in school who do research reports, this is a really good way to get up-to-date news on current events from different newspapers. That's one thing I wanted to mention in case anybody has a student who has to do things like that. You can go into more search options here. And it lets you do an expanded keyword search where you can pick what field you're pulling your words from, like title or summary. You can enter a date range, or you can narrow down your search by papers from particular areas. So kind of just a basic, you either just search everything, or you pick a newspaper, or you do your search and then you narrow it down. if I were to put in just a basic search here of all newspapers of cats, when you get your results, you're going to get a bunch of them. And this would be like any results list. If you were to do a search, you can then change how results are presented to you, newest to oldest. You can select what dates you want your results from. Down here, they'll tell you what sources your results are coming from, and you can narrow that down. So say you just want journals or magazines. And then down here, more things to narrow your results by. Oh, that's terrible. Okay. Any questions on America's News so far? Okay. Let's see. So the next database we have is ProQuest. And honestly, they look different, but they work very similarly. This is another one that has hundreds of newspapers, requires you to log in with your library card and password, limited to our service area. Here are some of the papers that it has that are of interest, I think. It has far fewer ones from Iowa. I think they have like 7 newspapers from Iowa. But I'll show you what this looks like really quick, and we would get to it from the same place. Go to books some more, resources. Oops, sorry. One thing I want to mention, you'll see a ton of individual newspapers mentioned in that list. When these multi-databases have a newspaper of interest, like the Des Moines Register or the New York Times, or I think the Chicago Tribune might be one, we pull those out and add that link directly to the screen there. So it may look like we have a lot of individual newspaper access, but actually we're just pulling those from those databases. So this is the ProQuest main screen, and like the other one, it's just a basic search screen here, and you put keywords in. You can choose right away to only get things from journals or books or videos, but all is probably the thing you're looking for. And I'm going to do my search of cats again. And I get 3 million results. Similar to the other database, you can narrow it down by relevance. You can limit to full text, a date range, type of document, publication title. If you go into publications, you get a list of the different things that they actually have in the database. So if you wanted to search for a publication from a certain area, you could see if they had that there and then search directly in that. So a little less going on with their search screen maybe, but still a pretty powerful research tool if you just want to look up news articles. Okay, any questions so far at all? No, okay. Go back to my little PowerPoint here. All right, I'm going to start with the websites now. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Washington Post website. This is how you get full access to the Washington Post newspaper website. You do begin with the link on our resources page, which I'll show you this whole sign-in process. You'll have to have your library card and a password. And then once you log in, it asks you to log in then with your Washington Post account. You may or may not have ever created one. It's free. It requires an email address and that you create a password with them. Or you can sign in through, I want to say Facebook, your Google login, and something else that it will show me. Access lasts for 7 days. When that 7 days is up, if you were to try to go to the Washington Post, it would tell you that you were limited, and that you would just return to our website and do the process again. Oh, here we go. Here's Carol. So now I'm going to show you the Washington Post. I'm going to go back to our page here. I'm just going to hop down here to WashingtonPost.com. And actually, I'm going to do something, since it looks like I already signed in today. I'm going to open up a browser that I hope doesn't remember that I'm signed in, because I want to show you how it works. Okay, so you sign in with your card number. And then it takes you to this screen. So they're asking, are you already registered? Use your existing account, and you would sign in with whatever your email address and password is. If you have to create a new account, you just put your email address and create your password there. Or if you have Facebook or an Amazon account, that's the other one, or a Gmail, Google login, you can click any of those and it will sign you in with whatever your login is for those resources.
Yeah.
Yes?
I think we're using the other browser. If
oh, no.
Your share, sorry.
So which one? Oh, no. Okay, hold on. Let me do it again. Darn it.
I found that just stopping the share and resharing tends to be the easiest.
Yeah. Okay, I think this should work. Are you seeing that now?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so basically all I did was I put my card number and password into the screen before, and it takes me to this, and it says, are you already registered? If so, use your existing account. If not, create an account. You would put in your email address, choose your password and type it twice, or you can just sign in with one of these, the Google, Amazon, or Facebook. And I don't think I created one. So I'm going to put my email in. Oh, you know, I think I did. Because as I was about to type the password, I remember that I did. And there it is. So it just, once you've signed in, it takes you into the website, and you can use it just like you had a regular subscription that you had paid for. You can share articles this way. You can download them, print them out. I think they don't, if they have a crossword or things like that, I do know that of all the things, like the New York Times doesn't let you do their crosswords with this free access, but otherwise you have full access to whatever it is they have on their regular website. Okay. And then the next one, so that's the Washington Post. The New York Times one works similarly. And let's see if I have. The same way you would go to our resources page, put your library card number and password in. After that, it takes you to a screen that has a passcode and it says redeem, and you click the redeem button. And then it asks you to log in with your New York Times account or create one if you don't have one yet. And with this, the access lasts for 72 hours. And after the 72 hours, you would come back here to renew the access. And it would, if you were to try to go to New York Times, it would let you know that you no longer have the full access, or you would start getting that message that you are using up your 10 free articles. You would just go back to our page and do the process over again. So let me do that. And hopefully I can do it correctly this time.
I'll just say while you get there that I have the login page on our website bookmarked for the New York Times. So every 3 days I can click there.
That's very smart. Okay. So you would go to newyorktimes.com. Oh, and so I guess I already did this. So what you're missing here is that when you click on this, you're going to put your card number and password in. So that's the only thing that's not showing right now. And then it takes you to this screen where it says, enjoy a special offer from the New York Times, redeem your code, digital access, and you click redeem. And then it takes you to this screen where you would sign in with your email address and password, or you could use one of these to just continue through that way, or create an account. If you haven't done one of these and you want an account with them, it's free. You can do that and create an account. I'm going to go ahead and continue with my Google. This is what, no, I'm not. Let me do this. Why is it saying that, Stacy?
This happens to me half the time. If you
okay, but then you click through and it's fine.
Yeah, the screen you had where it was the stuff down the middle with the login choices.
Yeah.
At the bottom, there's a choice to log in if you already have an account, and so
okay,
I've done that countless times. So that might
happen. It's very strange. So yeah, so it just takes you through then, and you can click on an article, and as you'll see, I'm not getting that message that I've used a certain number of my 10 free articles. And that's because I've logged in with this code from the library. That message that they give you that can be kind of misleading, but I would just click where it says click through to the news and it takes you right in. Any questions about that? Because that is kind of tricky there. It's kind of a two-step thing. You sign in with our card, you get to that redeem page, then you sign in with your account, and then it takes you through to the website. Did anyone want to go through it again, or maybe try it and see if you have questions? You can always get in touch with one of us. Okay. So that's the Washington Post and the New York Times. There we go. And so we're going to move on to the historical newspapers. The first one is Newspaper Archive, which if you do any genealogy or historical research, you probably use this. This has hundreds and hundreds of papers from all over the world. Coverage in some papers goes back to the 1600s. It's really an amazing resource. Unlike the other databases I talked about earlier, these are actual digitized newspapers. So you get the entire newspaper. You get the pictures. It's as if you are reading the newspaper. You see it as it was created. This requires your card and your password. And coverage does vary for locations and titles. For instance, they have the Cedar Rapids Gazette, as I show there, from 1932 to the present. But for the Press Citizen, they'll have odd gaps where they might have half a year, or they might be missing a whole year or part of a month. And then, they don't have every newspaper from every city and every state. We're kind of lucky because when Newspaper Archive started, I don't even remember how long ago, 15 years ago or so, even longer, the company that created it and owned it at the time was based in Cedar Rapids. So they actually have a lot of Iowa newspapers, which I found out really nicely when I was trying to research things about my parents, and they have the entire run of the Old Line Daily Register, which, who would have guessed they had that? You can create a free user account in this database to save any clippings that you want and to save searches that you're looking for. So let's go and see what that looks like. Has anybody used that before? It's one of my favorite databases for sure. So let me get logged in there and I'll do my screen here. All right. I'm gonna go down to newspaper archive. Okay, so you get onto their screen here and right away they give you, they've just changed this recently, which I think is kind of interesting, that they start you with a first name and last name search. I'm guessing that a lot of people do that here because they're looking for obituaries from the past or articles about certain people. You can switch to a keyword search, or you can switch and look for any particular titles that you might be interested in. I'm more familiar with the advanced search. This used to be the screen, closer to the screen that you would land on from the beginning, where you can put in a first and last name, or you can use any of these words. You can do a phrase search. So for instance, I did a lot of research last year on the pest house in Iowa City. And so I would do a phrase search of pest house and it would look through whatever newspapers I wanted it to for pest house. You can narrow down right away by location. It is alphabetical, so United States, you're gonna have to go all the way to the bottom of the list there. You can then go to state and city. They have papers from all of these cities in Iowa, which is just amazing. So many of them. Of course, some cities or towns are going to have fewer papers than others, but still. And then they'll, you know, here you can see the variety of papers they have just from Iowa City in here. You can narrow down your search right away by years. And then, so let's do pest house in Iowa City. And I'm going to leave it to all the publications in Iowa City. You just hit the search bar. And when you get your results, you can choose how they are shown to you by relevancy or date. And when you click into a result, you get the actual digitized image of the paper, and it will highlight the thing that you searched for. You can expand what you're looking at using these controls up here. It's like using the PDF viewer. You can make clippings by using the scissors here. And you just move your little box around to clip whatever it is that you're interested in. And then you can tag it and save it, which is really handy. You can save things, you can send them, print them. The database lets you, I don't think there's any limit on the number of things you can download and print. I think at one time they did actually limit that, but no longer. One nice thing is that they give you this right here. So they're showing us that we're on page 8 of 10 of the newspaper, but if you literally did want to just page through and read the paper, you could, which I think is so cool. I kind of geek out about this stuff a little bit. It all here, these buttons are always here, whatever screen you're on. So you can actually change how you start your search. You could start right away by going just to location. So you could right away just go and say, I want to see what papers are in Iowa. Or you could browse by date. This browse by location is a nice way to figure out what papers they do have in a place and what runs they have. So if I choose Iowa and then go down to Iowa City, it's going to tell me right away what papers there are. That was my husband sneezing. I don't know if you heard that. It's okay. And then you can search within that there. The publications button here will, you can also narrow down to states. So say you just want to see the publications in the state of Iowa, and right away you want to know what years they have, how many issues, to give you an idea of how full it is. you would find that in the publications button up there. So really, there's a lot going on here, but basically it's just, you kind of do your search and you narrow it down to your location and your time if you want to, or you don't. And then they offer these here, which are basically the same things that we looked at up here. They just have them in 2 different locations. Any questions about newspaper archive? No, okay. Quiet group tonight. Then these 2 databases that were created by libraries. We have the historical Iowa City newspapers, which we contracted with a company to digitize the microfilm reels that we had in our collection at the library. So prior to this, these were only available via microfilm, either at our library. You can also get them at the State Historical Society in Iowa City. These websites are available to anybody who has internet access anywhere in the world. I think that's part of what the company stipulates when a library contracts with them, is that they just are made available to anyone. The Gazette Historical Archives, the Cedar Rapids Public Library did that with the same company. And so the 2 databases, while they are separate papers and separate databases, they work exactly the same. Oops, sorry. Our Iowa City newspapers are really nice because it fills in what newspaper archive doesn't have, namely anything that came before 1890. And so our collection started in the 1840s and goes through 1929. The Gazette Historical is from 1857 to 2010. So a little bit shorter run, but still incredibly useful. These have many papers, but they are limited to just the localities that they are coming from. So let me go to that really quick. I should have just made links to these things. So, and I'll just show you the Iowa City one. Here we go. So in my opinion, it's kind of a clunky search function. You know, it's just not quite as slick as those other pages are, but it does exactly what it needs to. Here's your search bar, and it says you can search all of the words. You can do an exact phrase search, any of the words. I don't know. I guess none of the words you would use if you didn't want it to contain something, which I think is strange. And then you can either leave it with just the whole range of dates here. And I have to say, I just saw this yesterday. This 1808 is not real. There were no newspapers in Iowa City in 1808 because we were not a city yet. You can see here, they say that they have 40 pages between 1808 and 1809. And I went and looked at those pages, and what they actually are is they are 1889. So whatever digitizing thing they were using to digitize these papers misread the year on those papers and put 40 pages in that date range. So that's not true. But you can just leave it there anyway, because it'll pull up the paper is still there. Or you can start by going to a specific paper. These are the papers that are contained here. Some of these, this is when the Press Citizen first started, was 1920. Some of these then will be what it was before it was called the Press Citizen. So in some ways, it's a long run of the same paper with plus a couple others. Or you could just start, say you just wanted to look at pages from these different date ranges, you could do that as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and just to show you what it's like, I'm gonna do an exact phrase of the pest house. And you just hit this discover button there. And when you get your results, it tells you how many pages are coming from which papers and what time. So you could narrow it there even further. You could hit this filter key to, you click on those and you hit that filter key and it would just give you the results from those papers. And it tells me that I have 436 pages here. And you click on one, and again, these are digitized images. So you get the actual newspaper, which I think is great. And again, it it highlights it on the screen for you. If you were to print this out, that would not be highlighted though. It would just be regular digitization there. So that's what it looks like. You use these little buttons up here to navigate around. This takes you back to the results. This takes you to the home screen. This lets you crop whatever it is you would want to maybe print out or save. And this would let you download the page there. You can also then just go to different pages within that issue that you're looking at right there. So that is the historical Iowa City newspapers, and the historical Gazette one would be different paper, but it would work exactly the same. All right. Any questions on that at all? I'm gonna guess no. All right. And then the last thing we've got here is the New York Times Historical. New York Times does offer its own archival access. It is something that you have to pay for. So even with the access we get to the New York Times website, that does not give you access to their archival resource, which is too bad because it's really nice and it's easy to use. This one comes from ProQuest, which we looked at earlier, and it has great coverage, 1851 to 1993. You'll remember that ProQuest was just a full text database, but this, while it's the same search function and everything, this is actually the digitized images that they are presenting. So at least there's that. It does require your library card and password and is limited to the service area. So this will be the last one I show. I'll hop there. Let's just go back here. Okay. Here we go. So New York Times Historical. And since I was already signed in, it just, oh, that's really weird. It just takes me right into the database, but normally you would put in your card number and password. I'm not sure it's taking me to the right screen. Well, let me see. So earlier I had done a search of Kennedy. Okay, yeah, so here are so you just, let me back up here. Sorry, I skipped over that. It just starts you out with a basic search bar. You can go into an advanced search, what would let you put in your keywords, narrow down by dates. These are all the things that it might contain in the paper. So editorial, cartoons, or birth notice, classified ad, you could narrow it down to something like that if you were really looking for something specific. But otherwise, I feel like that basic search works pretty well, since in this case, we are just searching the historical New York Times. So you put your keyword in and hit the search button, and I get 372,000 results. Like the other databases, you can change how they're presented to you, relevance or oldest or most recent. You can choose here publication date, and right away you can see that clearly there are a lot more results coming from that date range. So you could just choose to just see those by clicking on that, and it just right away changes what you're seeing there. Down here, you could also choose something like document type. You want an article, front page article, an editorial, and you could narrow down these results because 99,000 would be quite a few to go through. When you click on it, it takes you into, oh no. Let me try a different one. I don't know why it's doing this. So it's not showing me any of the PDFs. So normally it would show here the newspaper. The full text PDF is actually where they've taken the paper and all they've done is they've cut out the word part and show that to you. So you would go to this page view PDF and it would show you the entire page. I don't know if ProQuest is doing something. Yeah, it might be temporarily down or may have permanently removed. I have a feeling they're doing some sort of maintenance on their website right now. I apologize. But this would show you, if it was working, the full page, similar to what we saw with other databases that had the digitized versions of the newspaper. And you would have controls that would let you zoom in on a certain part. You would be able to download it to your computer to see the whole page in a regular PDF viewer. Personally, I find that it's difficult to view the pages in this reader that they have because it's kind of jumpy and it keeps bringing the heading up here into the screen you're looking at. So when I am using this, I do download the PDF because then it comes to my computer and it opens up in Adobe PDF viewer, and then I can see it on my whole screen without any of this in the way. So that's the one thing about it being in ProQuest that's too bad, is that it's just sort of clunky getting to the stuff and viewing it, especially when it won't actually load the PDFs for you. So I'm going to stop that. So I guess if people were waiting to see New York Times Historical through all of this, they're really disappointed now. But I don't imagine that that's at all what anybody was really here for.
We can use our imaginations for what that would look
like. Yes, it is a really nice resource because it is, I mean, New York Times is our, newspaper of record, and it's really nice to be able to have all of those issues and to be able to, go back and find articles about momentous things and see what the New York Times was saying. It's unfortunate that we don't get that through the New York Times access. I do know that for a while that New York Times archive was just free. They would let anybody use it. And I think that only lasted a number of years before they started charging for it, which is not a surprise. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about any of these or has had any trouble using any of these databases. Yes, Carol?
I live in Coralville, so I have an Iowa City card, and I also have a Coralville library card. So does Coralville, so I assume that I can't access through Iowa City Public Library, but do you know if Coralville has the same setup?
They have some of the databases, I believe. They would have, I would be willing to bet that they have at least the two, the aggregate databases that I talked about at the beginning, or at least one of them, either America's News or ProQuest. I don't know if they have the website access. I feel like, yes, they do. We share that. That's a thing that gets shared between Coralville, Iowa City, and I think North Liberty. So for the website access, at least for the New York Times, I think for the Washington Post as well, you can do that. You just have to have your card and you go through your library's website. Was there a particular database you were, sorry?
Is it likely that it's kind of the same process? I go to online resources and page down.
Let me see. Let's go to their website really quick, actually. Why don't I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay. So here's the Coralville website and catalog. I'm going to guess it's under eLibrary. And then databases. So they've got these here. Good, they have Ancestry. That's an amazing database. Da-da. Gazette.
So, the Gazette is one of those that once in a while I would like to, I subscribe to the Press Citizen so I can find out what's going on locally. But occasionally I want to read something in the Gazettes. Maybe somebody has said, oh, you need to read this article. And then of course I go to the website and then it's blocked off. So you can't see.
Yes. And I have a feeling, I'm not sure about this, but this might be through ProQuest. Yeah, it's through, so you would put in your library card number here and log in. It's going to be that full text version that I showed you about. So no pictures, but you would be able to get the articles.
Okay.
Because I see down here they have ProQuest, and I'm guessing they also have, they must have Newsbank as well, because that, or that's where this was being provided through, I think. Yeah, InfoWeb Newsbank up here in the URL at the top. So I think that that's going to be just the full text. So not the website. It does look like, though, they do have the New York Times website here.
Yeah, that was
So
the other
that
one
would
I was
be,
going to ask about, because some of my friends, well, I have a friend who reads 4 newspapers every day, the New York Times and Washington Post.
yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not that much into knowing, there's only so much news that I want to know.
I'm with you on that. Yep.
And how much repetition of, the current topic, it's like,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
the New York Times one, if you did want that, it looks like it is the same thing that we go through. And so you would hit this, and then you would put in your, can you not do that, Adam? Thank you. Sorry. He was clanging something. You would hit this button here, and then you would put your email and password with the New York Times to sign in with them. So it would be like exactly the same as what we do here. They have ProQuest here, which is one of the ones that I showed you, the second one. And I don't see a lot of the other ones, though, in terms of the
At the
historical ones.
The first one is the America's News.
Right. And ProQuest was the second one, I guess. Yeah. So it's like they have some of the things, but not all of the same ones that we have. But
if you come into the Iowa City Public Library building to do that research, then you have access to all of ours.
Oh, okay.
That is true. Or if you have a friend with an Iowa City Public Library card who would be willing to let you use their card number and password.
Okay. So even though I have an Iowa City Public Library card, it knows that I do not live in Iowa City, right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. And that's how, that's how it's something that gets put into your record that shows what tax base area you live in is basically what it is.
It seems like, since we're so close together, that, I mean, Lone Tree's further away than Coralville is.
Yes. Yes. Like, they contract with us. So but I do see that, a lot more database sharing has been going on in the last 5 or so years. And I wouldn't be surprised if we just move towards that more and more, because it makes sense to do that. We are so close, and really it benefits everyone if we can share our resources more widely. I think sometimes it's just getting the actual database companies to allow us to kind of broaden that access. But we've been doing that, like we've done that with a few in the last few years. So I do think things are moving more that way for some databases.
So Coralville would have to pay a fee to Iowa City if they wanted to be within the area?
So Coralville would probably... the ones that we share with Coralville, we started those and kind of negotiated it from the beginning to do that. So for instance, like Overdrive, I don't know if you used our ebook collection, but when we got that, we sort of negotiated at some point pretty early on with North Liberty and Coralville. We're like, do you want to come in on this with us? And I think they do give us a certain amount of money, but it's commensurate with like the number of things that we buy and provide to the patrons and stuff like that. As far as the other databases, sometimes the companies they don't want cities to kind of go in on them together because they need to count how many patrons have access. It's kind of a weird thing that I'm not truly in the know on because I don't negotiate these, but it seems that we have trouble with some database companies getting to share or combine access, and other companies are much more willing to go along with that. I think they just want to charge as many company, as many libraries, like, you know, when you get the database, you pay for however many patrons you have, but you also pay kind of like a registration or a platform fee. And if we share that with another library, then they're losing that fee from that library or something. I don't know. Something silly. But yes, like Stacy said, if you come into the library, you can use all of these.
Okay.
But that means you have to come into the Iowa City Library.
Well, I used to be in Iowa City. I only live just a little bit north of Iowa River Landing, but because of COVID, you know, that's just changed everything as far as going into Iowa City on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So hopefully we'll be back to regular usage soon.
You could also, I'm sure that, you know, when people suggest certain databases or any type of resource to us, we look into, you know, how much would it cost to get it. So it might be worth, you know, talking to somebody at Coralville to say, you know, have you looked at this database and would that be something you guys would be interested in getting? It'd be worth it. We certainly have people recommend things to us that way.
Okay.
Any other questions? Or, and you know, what, I guess I'm curious to know, were you guys here to get like mainly the newspaper website access, or does anyone have an interest in the historical databases, or what brought you here? It's probably Stacy. Stacy brought you here.
Yeah. Curiosity, just to, you know, have an awareness of what's available and so forth.
Absolutely. If you decide you want that PowerPoint to just see the notes that were on there, just let me know and I can send that off to you.
I'd like to have that.
Right, I'll get your email from the registration and I can send that to you.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And of course, if you ever have any questions, I work on the information desk, so you could always just call and save a question for Candace, and I'd be happy to call or do a Zoom chat with you to work through some database things. I'm thinking I use the databases for a lot of historical research, so I think in the future I might do a class on, you know, doing genealogy research or finding obituaries, things like that, researching historical topics in those databases.
Great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'd be glad for the PowerPoint as well.
Super.
I've been taking notes, but
yes, I almost thought about sending it to people ahead of time so they could have, you know, the little pages with the small pictures of it, and you could take notes next to it. So, yeah, maybe next time I'll do that, but I will absolutely get that sent to you.
Great.
All right, Stacy, any questions?
Nope, that was so helpful. Thank you for doing it.
I'm so sorry that the last database kind of pooed its pants there and didn't show us any of the pictures.
That happened.
Yes,
if that were to happen to you in real life, other people in the call,
right?
Contact the library and we'll figure out what's going on.
Right. Yes, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Have a good night.